Starfield is finally here. I'm ready to give my thoughts after being asked constantly, Eric, what do you think of Starfield? This was my most anticipated game, so I was looking forward to playing it. Sunk the teeth in for several hours, and this is my thoughts. I'm going to be impartial as possible because I do have a little bit of love for the game, but I'm not going to ignore a lot of the valid criticisms that we've been seeing across the board. The first thing that disappointed me right out the gate with this game was the lack of true space exploration. I thought this was going to be like a better version of No Man's Sky. I thought the transitions from being in space to the planet's atmosphere was going to be seamless, but no, we were kind of marketed deceptively from Bethesda. They kind of lied to us a little bit because you put a waypoint and you essentially fast travel to a cutscene that has you landing on the planet as opposed to actually just going into the planet's atmosphere like No Man's Sky did. So right off the bat, I was a little let down with the space travel. Also, the space travel is not a big component, as I was led to believe. There is a little bit of dogfighting in space, but it's not that great. It's kind of actually underwhelming. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a important part to the gameplay mechanics, but you honestly can avoid fighting anybody in space just by grav jumping. If you activate your grav jump, or you're able to fast travel before the enemies recognize you, you can avoid all space travel and space combat without even having to actually control your ship. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. And then the other thing was the exploration. When you're actually on these planets, you can go and scan and survey the planet, look for the fauna and the different plant life, and actually explore and find anomalies and structures. But it's not really mandatory other than going to get your artifacts and whatever powers you can find on these planets. But it's not as in-depth of a thing that I thought No Man's Sky had, which led me kind of to believe, hey, they kind of didn't tell us the truth about how the game would play. Going in, I was expecting, yes, it's going to play with the same Bethesda engine that we've had for years. It's going to feel like Fallout in space, which, yeah, that's accurate. It's more like Fallout than anything, if you're going to be completely honest. Now, the other thing that I really didn't care for was the outpost building. Fallout 4 has a way more easier to understand and robust outpost building than what we got on Starfield, which is disappointing. I tried to mess with the outpost building and I was like, nah, you know what? It was a little too complicated for me. I didn't like the way that it was kind of, I don't know, you're limited to certain things in the outpost. Like, you have to have airlocks on your buildings, yet you're building the outpost on a planet that has a livable atmosphere. Doesn't make sense. If there's oxygen on the planet already, why the fuck do you need airlocks for your... It just didn't seem like they really took the care and thought into the outpost building. Yeah, it's cool and it's modular and all this, but nah, I didn't give a fuck about that. I will say with the ships, though, going and actually upgrading your ships and putting them together and building them using the modular parts and things like that was kind of cool. Also, going to random spaceports and stealing ships and registering them or selling them and becoming rich was cool. One thing that I heard a lot of people say that they were upset about was the fact that the planets are empty and barren. I want to say that they tried to go with a more realistic approach on this, considering that in our actual universe, in the real world, planet Earth is the only planet with life on it. It's not too far-fetched to say that a lot of the planets that you'll see in Starfield are not going to have any life on them. Now, there are planets that have creatures that will attack you or creatures that are passive. And then there's outposts and, I guess, mining facilities and things that you'll run up on. Space is supposed to feel lonely, guys. So I'm not going to hold that against them. There are cool planets that do have cities, such as Neon City in here, that kind of have like this cyberpunk type of vibe to it with the neon lights and everything. And there's like a underbelly of crime, which I thought that was really cool. You can literally be in Neon City and do jobs on the job board and sell drugs and kind of like be part of the criminal underworld in there. You could even get a penthouse there. So if you're into like the role-playing stuff, you can stay in one spot in this game and just do side missions and kind of hang out. I've read Reddit posts where people were doing that. There's also other cities, like one that was like West. I think it's escaping my mind. I think it's on Aquila, It's like a Western type of vibe. It's where Sam Coe's family's at. And, you know, there's different job boards. There's different factions, like in all the other Bethesda games where there's factions. The one piece that I will tell you guys going in is do not get distracted from the side quests. One thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that this game is really boring. I'm not going to lie, it has a slow simmer, but that's because if you don't get caught up in the main quest and you just focus on all the other side things that pop up, you're not going to go anywhere in the narrative. I was fucking around with side quests and faction missions for over 8 hours before I realized going and getting the artifacts, going and getting the powers opens up the game immensely. Once you get involved with these ships and building the ships and getting your crew on your ship, the game opens up so much more. The narrative gets going and it becomes quite entertaining. So if you go and focus on the side missions that often at times are fetch quests that seem pointless, you're going to feel like the game is pointless. All right? And before anybody comes at me with this whole BS of, oh yeah, the game just takes way too long and it's boring, a lot of you guys were the same motherfuckers that were defending Xenoblade when I said Xenoblade 2 was fucking boring and that it took too long. A lot of you guys were like, oh, it takes 40 hours to get into the game when it gets really good. Yeah, well, guess what? With Starfield, it takes time for the game to get good. If you fuck around with the side quest, you're never going to progress into the game's true mechanics, which are the powers and the actual, like, improvements and upgrades that your character receives from getting artifacts that progress towards the narrative. You got to get to the juice of the story. And a lot of other things that I've read was once you get to the New Game Plus aspect, there's a lot of good stuff in it. So it does take time. If you're not patient for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of gamers now aren't patient. They're going to feel this game's boring. I will disagree on that. I didn't get bored at all with this game, but I'm a big fan of Bethesda. Sure, the engine's outdated and everything, but I didn't get bored once with the game. I feel when you get into the action and combat throughout some of the scenes or some of the situations in the missions, it gets really intense. And in fact, sometimes it gets a little hard, especially once you start getting the artifacts and these hunters start spawning every time you get a power or an artifact, and they're like level 38 and you're level 21. It gets kind of quite complicated. You even get chased in space, and there's dialogue trees where depending on what choice you choose or whatever, they might attack you, or that you could persuade them to not attack you. And there's moments in here where it really feels like a space journey, but to be completely honest, I was let down with the fact that I was thinking it would be a little bit more open-ended, like a No Man's Sky, instead of relying on fast travel points and stuff like that. With that said, though, is it fair that some of the outlets like IGN rated the game a 7 out of 10? Let me be clear. When I made that video talking about the 7 out of 10 review, it wasn't me upset that they gave the game a 7 out of 10. I wasn't mad about the score at all. I was more upset that the reporter or the journalist that reviewed the game already had a negative bias towards Starfield for the last 3 years. So going in, they were going to review this game with a negative bias no matter what. That's the issue that I had with that video. And a lot of people in the comments were like, oh, Eric, you don't understand. The game is more than fair with a 7 out of 10. It wasn't about the goddamn score. Let's get that right through your head. It's about the reporter's bias. Is a 7 out of 10 fair for this? Yeah, I could definitely see why somebody would rate this game a 7 out of 10. This game is nowhere close to being a 10 out of 10 in my opinion, and I'm a fan of this game. I'm seeking tons of hours into this game, and I was taking my time with the quest and everything, but now I'm focusing on the main quest line because I see that it opens up the game a lot more, and I'm starting to get more satisfied with the gameplay mechanics and everything like that. A 7 out of 10 is perfectly fine for this game, though. I personally would lead more towards like an 8. You know, something that's above satisfactory. This game is not a fucking 4. Like I saw one other outlet rate it like a 4 out of 10. The game is actually really well done. Is it a Game of the Year candidate? Sure. But do I think it's going to win Game of the Year? No. That's probably going to go towards Baldur's Gate 3 or Spider-Man 2, if I'm going to be completely honest. Spider-Man 2 still hasn't come out, but I can already tell you Spider-Man 2 is probably going to be more well-received of a game than Starfield. Because let's be honest, sci-fi and space exploration and stuff is an acquired taste. If you're not into that type of stuff going into Starfield, you might feel a little bit bored. Thankfully, it's not too much of a space sim. It's easy to pick up and play, albeit some people might feel it's a little bit slow. If you've played a Bethesda game, though, this will be like riding a bike. Honestly, it's the engine that's been over a decade old. I think it's an 11-year-old engine at this point. I will just say, though, just to reiterate my claims of disappointment, space exploration, I wish was a little bit more bigger. I wish we had more of an incentive to do outpost, to ride around in our ships, but we really don't, especially with fast travel being available right at the start. The city exploration and stuff could be better. They could have a little bit more stuff on the planets, but let's be real. Space is supposed to feel lonely. You're supposed to feel like there's nothing out there, and that's what makes it feel like the final frontier. So I'm not going to hold that against it. Combat feels like a Bethesda game. There's no VAT system like Fallout, but it does feel like a Bethesda game. There's different skill trees that you can use to build, I guess, your character's attributes and stuff to a certain play style. With me, I focus a little bit more on ballistics and a little bit more on the research so I can build and upgrade and provide mods, because it does have all that. So if you played a Bethesda game in the past, you could get into this like a duck in water. If you've played No Man's Sky and you're expecting that, you're going to be extremely fucking disappointed with Starfield. So again, I would say an 8 out of 10 for me. I'm enjoying it. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. Never said it was wrong to not like this game at all. But my thoughts and stuff is I'm enjoying it. I really like it. I got the premium edition upgrade because it was available through Game Pass. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a little bit more ambitious because we were advertised something really ambitious. But it feels like it's the same old when it comes to Bethesda. And to be honest, while it is a little bit disappointing, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I'm fine with playing Fallout. Matter of fact, they probably could have just slapped a Fallout sticker on the front of this game, and I would have been more than okay with it. In wave glitches, I've only experienced freezing a couple times, where when I'm transitioning from one area to another, the game will randomly freeze. There's been slight stuttering, but as far as like frame rate issues go, with people complaining about it being 30 frames per second, I don't think that was too much of a problem. And then again, I can't really tell what a frame rate is with my naked eye. But I hadn't had much in way of technical issues. No funny Skyrim type of glitches or anything like that. Just freezing. You know, I haven't had any game-breaking bugs. The missions for themselves, they could be a little bit better. The NPC intelligence is Bethesda all the way, which means it has its moments where it's completely moronic, where it doesn't engage in battle properly. Sometimes you could cheese a lot of combat where the NPC enemies won't even be shooting at you, or they'll be running into a wall. And that also goes with your companions. A lot of times the companions are morons and they don't help you, and oftentimes it feels like, why the hell do you even have a companion at all? Classic Bethesda criticism here, but overall I feel the game is solid, so an 8 is more than enough of a score for me. Again, this was the game that I was more excited for than anything now, and it's come out, and I feel that it is going to get better with age. We got official mod support coming out soon within the next year, so I think when mods come out, we're going to see more ridiculous stuff. I've already heard people trying to make it like Warhammer 40k with mods and everything like that. So looking forward to seeing what the future holds with the game. But the launch is finally here, and it's been very divisive, very mixed between gamers, which in my opinion is a good sign. If it wasn't an important game, nobody would care either way. This game would have already fizzled out. I stand in the way of where I like the game, I'm interested in it, and if you don't, that's fine. So that's my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.